if you're alive, your portfolio will be the last thing on your mind, and perhaps the dead will be the lucky ones.
We're just headless chickens buying and selling equities over the 3-month time frame.
If more information was the answer, we'd all be billionaires with six-packs. I would say that could be true, but certain patterns almost always play out during the cosmic cycle. The current world affairs and global awakening are not accidental at all, part of the end times. If the population decreases by 20%, wouldn't that depress demand in a host of industries? That's from Ying. And this is our last question.
Yes. There's a lot of ways we can go with this question. Why do we always get these sort of questions? Anyway, so in some perspective, look, people ask us questions, so here's our thoughts. Global population, 8 billion. 20% of that, 1.6. That's a population of China and Korea. We can guarantee, if you're alive, your portfolio, which is overweight energy, will be the last thing on your mind. And perhaps the dead will be the lucky ones. Look, folks, we don't want to end.
If we're having an end of times, then who cares about the portfolio?
Yeah.
We have other problems.
Look, I think
we should create an end of times portfolio, though. Just so that
there's going to be a whole lot of booze and
water.
Whatever. Yeah, look, folks, this sort of stuff, does not do anyone any good. Now, this is going to the extreme, one would think, but it's also people thinking, what about, aren't you worried about the S&P crashing, or what about the next bear market in the S&P? All those sorts of things, they don't do you any good. Stay away from this stuff. Stay away from it. People talking about this. There's two types of people in this world: those who bring you up and those who bring you down. Just associate with those people sort of bring you up. Look, folks, when you look at history, going back far enough, when the world's good and ready, it'll just flick us off its back like it's done many other times before.
We're all going to die at some point. Just enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride. Life is just way too short for this shit. It doesn't do you any good at all. Positive. Life goes on, and we're trying to position people to make good money, to do exceptionally well. We've done okay so far. Look, I think the other thing out there, folks, too, is these days it's so easy to get caught up with this sort of shit on YouTube stuff and all this sort of thing. It didn't exist in the good old days. What did you have? A newspaper, and you watched TV and you had the news. You used to watch a few shows like Falcon's Crest and Dynasty. Life was so more simple back then, wasn't it? Yeah. I think we're happier back then, quite frankly. All right. I think that's it, folks. Thank you so much. Thanks for all the questions. We tell it how it is. We don't try and, give answers that, are user-friendly. Some questions, some answers are probably a bit hard-hitting, but anyway, it's the way it is. I think.
Well, I think it's important, Brad, to just what you were doing throughout was focusing people on the fact that, it really is as simple as holding what's cheap, not holding what's expensive. But the difficulty with the amount of stimulus around entering people's lives every second of the day has a great ability to take us off track. And the more content you consume, the more likely you are going to be distracted from.
Well, there's a thought on that, Lucas. That's probably one's asset, because if you've been taken off track, think of all the other people who've been taken off track as well. So if you can just overlook that, then it's a massive competitive advantage. So all this stuff is very, very short-term focused. So if you can just, look over that, turn off YouTube, turn off Twitter, look through it, It is, and it's not that hard. The hard part's the keeping away from the noise.
Oh, it's great switching off. I tend to not. I consume probably 5% of what I used to on the internet these days. It reminds
Yeah.
me as well of Chris, your mate, Derek Sivers. He had a fantastic quote, which was, "If more information was the answer, we'd all be billionaires with six packs."
There we go.
Yeah, it's like I say, we're inundated with information, but lacking in knowledge.
Very good.
There's absolutely no shortage of information. You can go online and you can do courses. In fact, I think was it Harvard or Stanford, one of those universities which has got all of their coursework online. If you can go and get all the coursework, you can learn anything you literally want. And the same is true of almost any pursuit. But I don't necessarily feel like we're any smarter, and in large part it's because we're entirely distracted with short-termism. It's like there's this 30-second window that people have, bite-sized information because it gives you a dopamine rush. But again, it doesn't actually produce anything. And people will sit for hours getting 30-second dopamine hits and come away, with nothing, no real knowledge, just superficial knowledge about things, tiny bits of knowledge, which
and time passing.
And time's passing, exactly. And it's like there is a massive advantage to taking that longer term view. In large part, we talk about this actually, it's reflected in the equity markets insofar as I can't recall now what the hold time is, but when I wrote about this some years back, it was a 3-month hold time for most equities. And if you go back to the 60s, it was a 14-year hold time. That's a median hold time for an equity. So in the 60s, people would buy something and they'd hold it for 14 years. Today, they're buying something and they're selling it within 3 months. Now, we all know that a company's fortunes do not change ordinarily in 3 months. That's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. It's maybe a very short startup, but not, it's Facebook or Meet or whatever the fuck it's called, like any ExxonMobil. None of these things are going to change within a 3-month time frame. That's only an idiot would think that. And yet we're buying and selling equities over that time frame. So what are we doing? Well, we're just getting dopamine hits going, oh, I've got new information, it means I should sell. Oh, I've got new information, it means I should buy. Oh, I've got new information. Like, we're just headless chickens. There's a massive, massive gap for people who just keep their head about themselves, sit back, look at the trends, and just logically buy the things that are cheap and be patient and just wait for all these headless chickens to finally come along and we'll sell it to them at some higher valuation much later down the track. So anyway, that's it for today, folks. Thank you very much for joining, as per usual.
We'll see you next month. Good luck.
Indeed, we will. And hopefully next time we'll figure out the technology, but I can't guarantee it because...
Oh my God, we took a step back. We used to be so much better at this.
Oh, well. People get the... Yeah. Good. Thanks, folks. See you next month.
All the best.
Bye.